The ranch reported finding what looked like initially foil-like material. This sort of suggested the possibility that something very strange had come down at Roswell.
Many people always suspected that the truth was being hidden behind edited documents, silenced witnesses, and years of official denial. But in a surprising development that caught the attention of historians, scientists, and the general public, the mystery of the Roswell incident was finally resolved in 2025, leaving many in shock. For 78 years, people came up with various theories: alien spacecraft, top-secret military projects, or even staged hoaxes. But this year, one declassified operation called Project Mogul gave a clear answer to what had really happened.
Jesse Marcel flies to Fort Worth to tell the whole world about the crash of a flying saucer at Roswell.
The proof is now available to everyone, detailed, direct, and verifiable. This final conclusion doesn't rely on guesses, but on real documents. And what those documents show completely shifts the story. Back in the desert, on July 2nd, 1947, a rancher named W.W.M. Brazel found a strange field of debris on his land near Roswell, New Mexico. He came across pieces that didn't burn, rip, or fold. Metallic strips, unusual tape with odd symbols, and light beams. I came across this weird material spread over a large area. I'd never seen anything like it before. Some of it looked like tin foil, but you couldn't burn or tear it. It was extremely strong, he explained. A few days later, he took some of the pieces to the Roswell Army Airfield. Major Jesse Marcel, who was the intelligence officer at the time, took charge of gathering the material and started looking into it. There were all these tiny beams with markings that looked like symbols, almost like something from another planet. They didn't seem to belong to any country I know of, Marcel said in an interview with UFO researcher Stanton Friedman in 1979. Then, on July 8, 1947, the Roswell Army Airfield made a huge announcement. They released a statement saying that the rumors about a flying disc were confirmed when the intelligence team from the 509th Bomb Group got hold of one, thanks to a local rancher and the Chavez County Sheriff. The Roswell Daily Record even ran the story on its front page. The news spread fast around the world and caused a mix of excitement and panic. Could this be proof of alien contact? But only hours later, the story changed. Military officials, facing pressure from higher up, held a press event claiming the debris was actually from a weather balloon. In photos taken during the press conference, Marcel was seen holding materials that looked like foil, wooden sticks, and rubber. Items that didn't match earlier descriptions. It was a weather balloon. Definitely just a weather balloon, said General Roger Ramey, who led the 8th Air Force at Fort Worth. This sudden change led people to question the whole thing. Why would the military first call it a flying disc if it was just a balloon? The story faded from headlines soon after, but many people were left doubting the official explanation. By the 1950s and 1960s, Roswell had become a quiet but growing part of UFO conversations, eventually reaching a larger audience through books, documentaries, and TV programs. More witnesses started to come forward. Theories about a government cover-up gained momentum, with people believing that alien evidence had been kept secret. Over time, the Roswell case turned into more than just a local event. It became a global story. Tourists began traveling to the site, hoping to connect with what might have been proof of alien contact. For nearly 8 decades, one major question remained. What really crashed outside Roswell in July 1947? There were different explanations, but no clear answer. The government kept denying any wrongdoing, while others insisted something was being hidden. Then came 2025. This time, the answer didn't come from someone leaking information or a blurry photograph. It came through newly released documents tied to a long-forgotten operation called Project Mogul. And for the first time since the event, officials, researchers, and even skeptics were all in agreement. The Roswell case was finally resolved in 2025, leaving the world stunned. But why did it take so many years? And why was the official version so different from what the early witnesses described? It became a clash between UFO researchers and the government's version of events. Decades of mistrust followed. By the late 1980s, the Roswell story had returned to public interest, this time driven by investigative books, TV features, and first-hand witness stories. Two major figures, Don Schmitt and Kevin Randle, led what became known as the modern Roswell research movement. In their 1991 book, UFO Crash at Roswell, they argued that the 1947 incident involved an alien craft and that the US government had kept it hidden. They weren't the only ones. Many researchers began gathering interviews from former military members, local citizens, and those with intelligence backgrounds. Some, like former mortician Glenn Dennis, said alien remains were secretly taken and examined at Roswell Army facilities. Others pointed to how the debris descriptions didn't match or noted strange behavior by military officers during that time. As the media coverage expanded, so did the public demand for clarity. In response, the US Air Force published two major reports, one in 1994 and another in 1997. The 1994 report concluded that the debris came from Project Mogul, a top-secret balloon program created to detect Soviet nuclear tests. The follow-up report released in 1997 addressed the claims about alien bodies, explaining them as high-altitude crash test dummies used in separate experiments during the 1950s. Both reports highlighted the importance of keeping national security information secret in 1947 and pointed to unreliable memory over time as a reason for conflicting testimonies. According to the Air Force, there was no mystery surrounding Roswell. They stated the event had been misunderstood and misremembered, and that their investigations had already resolved the confusion. But many UFO researchers disagreed. They argued that Flight 4, the Mogul test flight said to have caused the crash, had actually been cancelled due to bad weather, something confirmed by the project's own field leader, Dr. Albert Crary. Skeptics also questioned the materials mentioned in the Air Force's report. They pointed out that the radar reflectors and neoprene balloons described didn't match what witnesses said they saw, such as memory-like metal or debris with strange symbols. Other researchers, like Dr. David Rudiak and Brad Sparks, studied flight paths and determined that the Mogul equipment couldn't have ended up on the Brazil Ranch when considering wind patterns and launch records. Eyewitnesses rejected the weather balloon explanation. Frankie Rowe, whose father worked as a firefighter in Roswell, said he was at the crash site and later brought a piece of the wreckage home. She recalled it as a small piece of metal, extremely lightweight, which returned to its original shape after being crumpled. Her father told her it came from a flying saucer, but warned her never to speak about it again, saying the military had threatened their entire family. The media attention only grew from there. Television programs like Unsolved Mysteries and Ancient Aliens helped keep the Roswell case alive in popular culture. The term UFO cover-up became a fixture in conspiracy circles. Still, the official stance didn't change. No aliens, no spacecraft, just balloons. But that raised another question. What made these balloons so suspicious? The contradictions added up. Despite how detailed the 1994 and 1997 reports were, they failed to erase all doubt. For many, especially those familiar with the original eyewitness reports, the case didn't feel settled. Nearly 8 decades would pass before some of the evidence started receiving serious attention. In the meantime, rumours about the secret balloon program spread quickly. The classified 1947 balloon operation, known as Project Mogul, had been developed by Dr. Maurice Ewing and Dr. James Peoples at New York University. The program's goal was to detect Soviet nuclear explosions by using long-distance balloon trains equipped with acoustic sensors. These instruments were meant to pick up infrasonic waves from atomic blasts. Each balloon carried a combination of radar reflectors, sonobuoys, and data recorders, sending information back to ground stations across the United States. Mogul flights were launched from areas like Alamogordo and White Sands between late 1946 and 1949. Most launches were small-scale tests. Importantly, the secrecy of the project wasn't due to anything involving extraterrestrials. It was classified because of its role in monitoring Soviet nuclear capabilities during the Cold War. Each balloon train was made of several neoprene weather balloons, aluminum foil radar reflectors, balsa wood frames, and sometimes Rowan reflectors made from foil-backed paper. These materials were unfamiliar to civilians in 1947, especially when found scattered in a remote desert. But when researchers revisited the official version of events, they began spotting inconsistencies. Much of this re-examination focused on Dr. Albert Crary's field notes, original journal entries from 1947 that recorded Project Mogul's activities in real time. While the Air Force's 1994 report had pointed to Flight 4 as the source of the Roswell debris, Crary's actual notes seemed to tell a different story. His entry for June 4, 1947, the day Flight 4 was supposedly launched, read clearly, "No balloon flights on account of clouds." This statement directly contradicted the Air Force's claims and brought into question whether Flight 4 had even taken place, casting doubt on the entire explanation involving Project Mogul. Further analysis by physicists and flight experts such as Dr. David Rudiak and Brad Sparks revealed serious technical issues with the official version. Their trajectory simulations and wind pattern studies showed that no documented Mogul flight could have travelled far enough or high enough to reach the Brazel property near Roswell. Wind drift models and launch time calculations used in the 1994 report were later found to contain errors. There were also legal and logistical barriers to consider. Some of the launches mentioned in the Air Force's reports would have needed to occur at night. However, nighttime launches were not permitted at the time due to air safety rules. In addition, certain parts described in the 1994 report, like constant altitude controllers, weren't used in the program until later flights. In short, the description of Mogul given in 1994 didn't fully line up with the real conditions in 1947. At the same time, new pressure was building from inside the system. In 2022, the Department of Defense created the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARO, to address growing congressional interest in UFO-related topics. The office's director, Dr. Shah Kirkpatrick, made a few vague remarks in early interviews, suggesting that while the 1994 Roswell report was mostly correct, it may not have told the full story. Outside of government investigations, researchers working at the University of Texas, Arlington uncovered long-forgotten Project Mogul documents from New York University contractors. These included technical drawings and logbooks that contradicted earlier published details. Gradually, more attention turned toward uncovering the full picture. The push for openness began to gain momentum. By the end of 2024, growing bipartisan pressure and legal action under the Freedom of Information Act forced a second look at previously classified Mogul documents. The Department of Defense agreed to a full release planned for early 2025, but no one was prepared for what followed. The content of those documents would permanently reshape the conversation around Roswell. In 2025, the 78-year-old mystery surrounding the Roswell incident was finally resolved, and the proof left even the most skeptical voices stunned. The declassification shock in 2025. In March of 2025, the Department of Defense made public a complete, unedited archive of Project Mogul documents. These included everything from launch details and engineering blueprints to internal communications between project officials and military leadership. Digitized from the Air Materiel Command's original records, the files were made instantly available to the public, and what they contained caught the research world completely off guard. One document stood out: a comprehensive flight log for Mogul Flight 4. Previously believed to be cancelled or never launched, this newly revealed record confirmed that Flight 4 had indeed launched at 3:41 a.m. on June 4th, 1947. It flew under a rare special permit issued by the Civil Aeronautics Administration, a detail never shared before. The files included chase aircraft transcripts, radar tracking data, and final recovery coordinates, all of which pointed straight to Foster Ranch near Roswell. Technical diagrams showed that the flight carried an extended array of balloons, fitted with reflective mylar sheets and early sonobuoy sensors, developed through a partnership with Columbia University's acoustics department. The setup closely matched the materials witnesses described in 1947: bendable metallic foil, lightweight support rods, and sticky-backed panels marked with unusual stenciling, which later turned out to be factory labeling. This was exactly what Major Jesse Marcel had been talking about since the original incident in 1947. This wasn't a weather balloon. It wasn't anything familiar. It wasn't made on Earth. That was Marcel's position, and now it finally had backing. During a live broadcast, longtime Roswell researcher Kevin Randall reviewed the documents. Holding a schematic of the radar array in front of him, he looked into the camera and said, "This shouldn't be possible. Everything we thought was wrong about Project Mogul is right here in black and white." But there it was, verified, dated, and officially logged. Additional documents revealed that the Air Force's original 1947 reversal of the flying disc statement had been ordered from high up, based on OPC Directive 75G. That directive had been kept secret until now. The goal was to avoid drawing Soviet attention to the United States nuclear monitoring program. Colonel Thomas Dose, then Chief of Staff to General Remy, explained, "The balloon explanation was a cover story. That's what we were instructed to tell the public, and that's what we did." More evidence surfaced in the form of recovered audio recordings between Dr. Albert Krah and Fort Worth Army Airfield. In these recordings, Krah described collecting pieces of radar targets and neoprene fabric from the Roswell debris site, materials commonly used in classified balloon flights but unknown to civilians and local military units at the time. In a rare CNN special, Anderson Cooper aired these findings and interviewed both military experts and surviving Mogul team members. "We've waited nearly 8 decades for this," Cooper said, "and today we finally have clarity. The physical evidence, the flight logs, and the technical details all line up. There are no loose ends left. Roswell wasn't about aliens, it was surveillance, and in 2025 that truth was finally revealed, shocking the world. Media response shocks the world. Within just hours of the 2025 disclosure, the news exploded across international outlets. Headlines appeared in every region. BBC called it the most significant UFO-related disclosure ever. The New York Times went with Roswell's X-File finally closed. Global coverage came from Der Spiegel, NHK, and Al Jazeera. For the first time since 1947, there was worldwide agreement. Roswell had a clear and logical explanation, and the newly released data left skeptics and believers alike stunned. That night, Anderson Cooper hosted a 2-hour special on CNN. With a massive image of a Project Mogul radar reflector behind him, Cooper walked viewers through decades of confusion. He explained the original reports, the mix-ups, and the 2025 files that clarified everything. He showed side-by-side images of the debris collected in 1947 and the blueprints from from Mogul documents. "This is it," he said. "Every part described by witnesses back then is right here in these files." The public reaction was immediate. Hashtags like, Roswell solved, Mogul revealed, and world speechless took over social media platforms like X, Instagram, and TikTok. People may be left in silence now, but the sky still holds a lot of unanswered questions. And there are researchers who are still searching for proof of life beyond Earth. Do you accept Project Mogul as the explanation for Roswell? Do you think other forms of life exist somewhere out there? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.